The sun rose over the red plains where wind moved like a quiet song through dry grass. An Apache girl stood at the edge of a broken camp, her hands bound by rope, her body weak from days. Without rest, she had walked too far, run too hard, and trusted the wrong path. Her people were gone, scattered by fear and hunger, leaving her alone in a land that no longer felt kind. Pain lived in her legs from an old injury earned while saving a younger child during a storm. Her strength was fierce, but her body had limits, and that truth followed her like a shadow. She whispered to herself that she could not close her legs, not because of shame, but because pain had locked her muscles and the cold night had stolen warmth from her bones. Every step felt like fire, and memory blended with suffering. She remembered stories told by elders about dignity and courage, about standing tall. Even when the world tried to bend the spine, she promised she would survive, not for anger, but for hope. Far away, a lone rancher guided his horse across the same plains. He was a quiet man shaped by loss and long work. His ranch was small, his days were simple, and his nights were full of stars and old thoughts. He believed the land spoke to those who listened, and that kindness returned in ways unseen. When he noticed footprints that did not belong to cattle, he followed them with care, sensing trouble ahead. He found the girl collapsed near a dry creek. Her eyes were open, steady, and unbroken. Even as pain held her still, she did not beg. She did not cry. She met his gaze with the calm of someone who had already chosen courage. The rancher dismounted slowly, offering water and shade. Without words, he understood that trust grows best when forced by nothing. The girl tried to rise, but her legs would not obey. Her voice came soft yet strong as she told him the truth, that her body could not close, that pain had taken control. She expected judgment or fear. Instead, the rancher removed his coat, laid it beneath her, and shielded her from the sun. He chose an unthinkable kindness for a world that often chose cruelty. He decided to carry her. Lifting her carefully, he placed her across the saddle, securing her with gentleness. He walked beside the horse the long way back, so every step would be steady. The journey took hours, and silence wrapped them both in that silence. Respect grew. The girl watched the horizon and felt something unfamiliar, trust returning like rain after drought. At the ranch, he prepared a clean place by the fire. He treated her injuries with knowledge learned from years of living close to nature. He used herbs, water, and patience. He asked nothing in return. He listened as she spoke of her people, her fear, her hope. He spoke of the land and the promise that pain does not own the future. As night came, stars filled the sky. The girl rested, wrapped in warm, feeling life returned to her legs. Little by little, she understood that survival was not only about strength, but about accepting help when it appears. A rancher sat outside, guarding the quiet. He believed that doing the right thing needed no witness. In the soft dark, the girl decided she would walk again. She would carry this lesson back to her people, that compassion can rise from unexpected places, that one act of courage can change a path forever. And as sleep found her, she knew this was only the beginning of a story born from pain, guided by mercy, and carried forward by hope. Morning arrived slowly at the ranch with pale light touching the hills. The Apache girl woke to the sound of birds and the smell of warm earth. Her body felt different, not healed, but calm in the fire from the night before. Still breathed softly, and the pain in her legs no longer ruled every thought. She tried to move, and though weakness remained, she felt hope stretching inside her like muscles remembering their purpose. The lone rancher was already awake, tending to the animals. He moved with quiet respect, never staring, never questioning. Her presence did not disturb his routine, yet it changed the meaning of it. When he returned, he placed food near her and stepped back, giving space. She ate carefully, feeling strength return with every bite in her life. Food had often been shared as ceremony and survival, and this act felt sacred. They spoke slowly, learning each other's words and silences. She told him her name and the meaning behind it, which spoke of endurance and sky. He told her his name and the simple truth that he had chosen solitude after loss. His family had once filled the ranch with laughter, but time had taken him, leaving only memory and land in her eyes. He saw understanding, because loss was a language she also spoke. As the sun climbed, he helped her stand, supporting her weight. Without force, he waited while her legs trembled. The pain returned, sharp, but no longer frightening. She focused on breathing on the ground beneath her feet and on the belief that she was more than injury. Step by step she moved, and the rancher stayed close, ready, but not controlling. When she finally stood on her own, even for a moment, pride filled the space between them. Later, he showed her the edge of the property, where water still flowed beneath stones. He explained how the land changed with seasons, and how survival came from listening rather than fighting. She listened deeply, because her people believed the same. The land was teacher and protector. When honored properly in that shared belief, a bridge formed between two very different lives. But danger still lived beyond the hills. Raiders moved to the plains, searching for weakness. The girl knew this, and warned the rancher that her presence could bring harm. He considered her words with seriousness. He had lived long enough to know that safety was never guaranteed, yet he also believed that turning away from someone in need created a deeper danger one of the spirit. That evening, smoke rose in the distance, a signal or a fire. No one could say. The girl felt fear tighten her chest. Memories of capture and violence tried to return. She told the rancher she would leave before bringing trouble. He looked at her steadily and shook his head. He said that running from fear only teaches fear to follow instead. He prepared the ranch, securing animals, hiding supplies, and readying himself for what might come. He taught her how to hold a rifle, how to watch the horizon, and how to stay calm when the heart races. He did not see her as weak. He saw her as wounded and healing, which was something he respected deeply. She practiced standing longer, walking farther, pushing through pain with care, not anger. Each movement was a promise to herself. That night, they kept watch together. Stars moved slowly, and the wind carried distant sounds. The girl spoke of her people as songs sung to keep children brave. She sang softly, and the rancher listened, feeling something long buried stir. Inside him, the land seemed to listen too, as if remembering older times when many voices shared the fire. No attack came that night, but change had already begun. The girl realized that healing was not just physical. It was about being seen, without being judged, about choosing courage again. And again, the rancher realized that solitude was not strength by itself, and that protecting life gave its own new meaning. As dawn approached, both understood that their paths were now connected not by fate alone, but by choice, and whatever waited beyond the hills, they would face it awake together, grounded in trust, and guided by the quiet power of doing what is right. The third day brought heavy clouds and a strange stillness across the plains. The Apache girl felt it before she saw the land had gone quiet. As if holding its breath, she stood near the ranch house, leaning on a poster leg, stronger now, though still aching. Every step she took was a victory earned slowly. And honestly, the rancher watched her with respect, knowing that healing followed its own rhythm. By midday, dust appeared on the horizon, moving in an unnatural line. The girl narrowed her eyes and recognized the sign. Riders were coming not as travelers, but as hunters. Her heart beat faster, yet her mind stayed clear. She told the rancher that these men would not listen to reason. They followed fear and power and saw mercy as weakness. The rancher nodded and prepared without panic. He guided the animals into shelter and covered tracks as best he could. He trusted the girl to help, and she moved with purpose despite the pain. In that moment, she was not a victim or a burden. She was a guardian of her own future. When the riders finally appeared, their faces were hard, and their eyes searching. They asked questions that carried threats beneath their words. The rancher answered calmly, saying he had seen no one, and that the land was empty. His voice carried the weight of truth. Even when truth was bent to protect life, the girl remained hidden, watching through a crack in the wall, her breath steady, her hands firm. One rider dismounted and stepped closer, sensing something unseen. The air tightened. The girl felt the urge to run, but remembered the rancher's words about standing firm. She waited, trusting him as he had trusted her. After long, tense moments, the riders left convinced that nothing of value waited there. As silence returned, the girl felt her knees weaken. She had faced danger many times, but this was different. She was no longer alone, and the rancher placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. In the present, neither spoke, because words were too small for what had passed. That night she dreamed of her people calling to her across distance and time. She woke with tears, not of fear, but a longing. She told the rancher that her heart pulled her toward her tribe. She needed to return, not only to be safe, but to carry a story of kindness back with her. He listened, knowing that letting go was part of honoring someone. He offered to guide her part of the way, knowing the land well. Together, they planned the journey, marking water and shelter. The girl practiced walking longer distances, strengthening herself with each hour. She fell once and rose again, each time learning that falling did not mean failure. Before leaving, she stood at the ranch gate and looked back. She had arrived broken and unsure, carried by a stranger. She now stood by choice and strength shaped by compassion. She thanked the rancher not with grand words, but with a quiet promise that she would remember and that her people would hear of his courage. As they set out together, the plain stretched wide and uncertain, yet neither felt alone. The road ahead held danger and discovery, but both had learned that when one person chooses mercy, the world shifts slightly toward light, and that shift was enough to begin again. The journey away from the ranch began before sunrise, when the air was cool and the world felt open. The Apache girl walked beside the lone rancher, her steps careful but determined. Each movement carried pain, yet also strength earned through patience. The land unfolded slowly, with hills giving way to valleys and silence broken only by wind and distant birds. As they traveled, the girl spoke more of her people of elders who taught survival through respect and stories that carried wisdom forward. She said her tribe had been pushed from familiar paths, and that fear had scattered families across the plains. A rancher listened closely, understanding displacement. In his own way, he had lost not land, but people, and knew how emptiness could echo. By midday, they reached a narrow pass where rocks rose high and shadows lingered. The girl sensed danger again. The land whispered warning, and memory stirred her chest. She told the rancher that this place had seen violence before. He did not doubt her instinct, and they slowed, moving with care, watching every ridge and sound. Suddenly, voices carried to the pass riders again, but closer this time. Their numbers were fewer. But intent, sharp, the girl felt her legs stiff in fear, trying to return its old power. She focused on breathing and on the knowledge that she had survived worse. The rancher guided her behind stones and stood firm, presenting himself openly, drawing attention away. The riders questioned him harshly, sensing resistance. The rancher answered with calm strength, refusing to show fear. The girl watched, knowing that one wrong moment could break everything. She gripped a stone, grounding herself in the present, remembering that courage was action, not absence of fear. When a rider moved too close, the girl stepped forward. Despite pain, she revealed herself not as prey, but as present. Her eyes held fire and dignity. She spoke of survival and warning, telling them that harm would not go unanswered. Her voice carried weight beyond her size or injury. The riders hesitated, seeing something unexpected resolve where weakness was assumed. After tense moments, they turned away, choosing easier paths. The pass grew quiet again, and the girl felt her legs shake, yet she stood. She had faced fear without running, and that victory belonged to her. Later, as they rested, the rancher told her that her strength had changed him. He said that seeing her stand had reminded him that healing could inspire others, even in silence. She smiled, knowing that her journey was no longer just about returning home, but about becoming a story of hope. As evening approached, they reached a place where their paths would soon divide. The girl felt both gratitude and sadness. She had learned that help could arrive without demand, and that trust could grow between strangers. The rancher felt pride, watching her walk stronger than before. They shared a final fire in quiet, understanding. The stars returned bright and steady above them. The sky seemed endless, carrying promises yet to be fulfilled. The girl knew that tomorrow she would continue alone toward her people, carrying lessons of mercy and courage. She slept that night with peace settling deep inside her body. Her legs still ached, but her spirit stood tall. She understood now that the unthinkable act was not just being carried when she could not walk, but being believed in when the world expected her to break. Morning came with soft light and a quiet understanding of the time to separate had arrived. The Apache girl rose slowly, stretching her legs, feeling both pain and power within and alone. Rancher prepared supplies, placing water and food carefully into a small pack. He did not speak much, because goodbyes often live better in silence. They walked together for a short distance until the land opened wide, and familiar signs appeared. The girl recognized markings left by her people, stones placed with meaning, paths shaped by memory. Her heart lifted, and her steps grew stronger. She knew she was close not just to her tribe, but to her purpose. She stopped and turned to the rancher, looking at him fully. The man who had once been a stranger was now part of her story. She bowed her head in respect and spoke of gratitude, saying that his kindness would live on through her actions and words. She promised that her people would remember him as one who chose mercy when no one was watching. The rancher nodded, feeling a warmth he had not known in years. He said that helping her had healed something broken inside him, and that the land felt alive again because of it. He told her to walk proudly and never doubt her worth. His voice carried truth shaped by hard days and honest choices. They parted with a final look, and the girl continued alone. Her legs carried her forward stronger. With every mile, the pain was still there, but it no longer defined her. She moved through valleys and across ridges, guided by instinct and memory. The land welcomed her as one who listened. As she neared her people, she saw smoke rising and heard distant voices. Children ran first, calling out. Elders followed, their eyes filled with disbelief and relief. The girl stepped into the circle, standing tall despite exhaustion. She told her story not with anger, but with clarity. She spoke of loss and survival, a lone rancher who chose compassion over fear. Her people listened deeply, absorbing every word. The elders nodded, recognizing the power of such a story. They saw not weakness, but strength renewed. They welcomed her home with ceremony, and song honored her journey and the lessons carried within it. That night by the fire, the girl looked at her legs and felt pride. She had walked back from pain and fear. She understood that healing was not a single moment, but a path walked daily. She knew that her voice now carried weight and responsibility. As stars filled the sky, she decided she would teach others what she had learned, that courage could come from accepting help, that dignity remained even in vulnerability, and that one unthinkable act of kindness could change many lives far beyond the place where it began. Seasons passed, and the land changed as it always did. The Apache girl, now a young woman, walked freely among her people. Her legs still remembered pain on cold mornings, but they carried her with strength and purpose. She had become a storyteller, not for fame, but for guidance. Her words were shared around fires, and in quiet moments, teaching that survival was shaped by both courage and compassion. She spoke often to the lone rancher, not as a hero above others, but as a man who chose humanity when it mattered most. Had never met him yet, they felt his presence through her story. Through this tale, her people learned that allies could exist beyond familiar borders, and that trust could grow even in harsh places. The woman took on a role of healer, learning herbs and listening skills from the elders. She treated wounds of the body and spirit, remembering how patience and care had saved her. She never rushed healing, because she knew pain could not be forced away. It had to be understood and respected. Far away, the rancher continued his life tending the land, but he was no longer alone in spirit. He carried the memory of the girl standing strong in the past, and that image guided his days. He began helping travelers, offering water, shelter, and quiet. Respect. The ranch became a place of refuge, known to those who listened to the land. One day, messengers arrived at the edge of his property, carrying a small gift woven with meaning. Inside was a symbol of gratitude from the tribe, a sign that his kindness had crossed distance and time. He held it carefully, feeling connected to something larger than himself. Years later, the woman returned to the plains near the ranch, not out of need, but to honor the path that had shaped her. She walked easily, now her steps sure and grounded. She stood at the place where she had once been carried, and felt gratitude rise within her like a prayer. She did not find the rancher that day, but she felt his spirit in the land. She left a small offering and a promise that the story would continue to be told. The wind carried her words across the grass and into memory. The story lived on, becoming a lesson passed through generations. It taught that strength could be shared, that dignity could survive pain, and that mercy chosen in silence could echo forever. And so the Apache woman walked on, not defined by injury or fear, but by resilience and grace. Her journey had begun in suffering, but ended in wisdom, proving that even when the body is broken, the spirit can rise and guide others toward light.